My husband handed me vacation tickets and said, "Your mom would want this." Then I opened my drawer. Her jewelry box was empty, and he whispered, "Don't overreact." I lost my mom, Donna, the year before this happened. She had cancer, and it was the slow kind of cruel. The kind where people keep saying someone is strong, but what they really mean is they are suffering politely. By the end, she was so thin I was afraid to hug her too hard. She apologized when I helped her stand up. A few nights before she passed, she asked me to bring her the small wooden jewelry box from her bedroom. I knew exactly which one. It had a faded flower carved into the lid and a brass latch that never closed right. It had belonged to my grandmother, then my mom, and she kept it on her dresser my whole life. I brought it to her bed and sat beside her while she opened it with hands that shook. She took out her wedding ring first. Then a thin gold bracelet my dad bought her before he died. A pair of pearl earrings she wore to my wedding. A small sapphire ring that came from my great-grandmother. Nothing in that box was worth life-changing money, but it was worth more than money to me. It was my family in pieces small enough to hold. My mom pushed the box toward me and said, "I want you to keep these safe." I told her I would. She smiled a little and said, "I know they're just things, but one day when you wear them, it might feel like I'm still with you." I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand and nodded. A few days later, she was gone. After the funeral, my husband, Jason, helped me bring the jewelry box home. He carried it into our bedroom like it was fragile. He watched me wrap it in one of my mom's scarves and put it in the top drawer of my dresser. He knew what it meant. He knew I barely touched it unless I was having a hard day or there was something important happening. The first birthday after she died, I wore her bracelet to work. I made it through half the day before I locked myself in the bathroom and cried because the bracelet slid down my wrist the same way it used to slide down hers. When I came home, Jason found me sitting on the edge of the bed, holding it in my palm. He sat beside me and rubbed my back. He said, "I'm glad you have that." That sentence has haunted me more than anything. Because he knew. For months after my mom died, I wasn't myself. I went to work. I paid bills. I made dinner sometimes. I answered texts with short little fake cheerful replies. But the house felt hollow. Omaha was the same city I had lived in for years, but suddenly every normal place had a ghost in it. The grocery store where my mom bought too many peaches. The pharmacy where I picked up her prescriptions. The park where we used to walk when she still had the energy. Jason was patient at first. He made coffee in the morning. He drove me to my mom's apartment when we had to clean it out. So when people ask me why I didn't see this coming, that's why. Because he wasn't some cartoon villain. He was my husband. He had seen me fall apart and, for a while, he held me through it. Then something shifted. A few months before everything happened, Jason started getting restless. At first it was small comments. He would scroll through his phone and say, "Must be nice," when someone posted vacation photos. Or he would sigh after dinner and say, "We don't do anything anymore." One night, we were eating takeout on the couch because neither of us wanted to cook, and he said, "Do you ever feel like we're just existing?" I said, "Sometimes." He looked at me like that answer annoyed him. I mean, everyone else is living. We work, pay bills, sleep, repeat. I didn't argue because he wasn't completely wrong. Money had been tight. My car needed work. Jason's hours at the shop had been cut. We had some credit card debt we were trying to pay down. I had been careful with every dollar because losing my mom made me scared in a way I didn't expect. I wanted emergency savings. Jason wanted escape. He started bringing up trips. San Diego, Florida, Vegas, even just a long weekend somewhere with a pool. I kept saying, "Not right now." He would say, "There's never going to be a perfect time." And I would say, "There is a worse time though. And this is it." That made him quiet. Not understanding quiet. Resentful quiet. I noticed he stopped asking about my grief and started acting like it was a season that had gone on too long. If I had a bad day, he would say things like, "I hate seeing you like this," but it didn't feel comforting anymore. It felt like pressure to hurry up and become easier to live with. Then one Friday, he came home with this huge smile on his face. It was the first time I had seen him look that excited in months. He walked into the kitchen while I was rinsing a mug and told me to dry my hands. I asked why. He said, "Because I did something." I remember turning around and seeing him holding an envelope. My stomach did that weird little drop it does when you know something is coming, but you don't know if it's good or bad yet. He told me to sit down. Then he stood in front of me like he was about to propose all over again. He pulled printed papers from the envelope and laid them on the table. Flights. Hotel reservation. 5 nights in San Diego. Ocean view room. A resort I knew we could not afford. For a second, I just stared at the pages. Jason was watching my face, waiting for joy. I could tell he expected tears, maybe a hug, maybe me saying he was the best husband in the world. Instead, the first thing out of my mouth was, "How did you pay for this?" His smile twitched. He said, "Can you just be happy for 1 second?" I looked back at the papers. The hotel alone made my chest tighten. I knew what we had in checking. I knew what we owed. I knew what my emergency savings looked like because I was the one moving money around every month and making sure we didn't fall behind. I asked again. Jason, how did you pay for this? He sat across from me and reached for my hand. I pulled it back without thinking. That was when he said, don't freak out. And I swear, every bad feeling in my body stood up at once. He took a breath and said he had sold some stuff we weren't using. I didn't understand at first. What stuff? He looked toward the hallway. Not directly at the bedroom, but close enough. My hands went cold. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. I walked past him, down the hallway, into our bedroom. I opened my dresser drawer. The scarf was still there. That almost made it worse. He had unwrapped the jewelry box, emptied it, then wrapped the box back up like he could make it look untouched if I didn't look closely. I opened it. Empty. Not fully empty. There were a couple of tiny things left. A broken chain that had no clasp. A silver charm I never saw my mom wear. But the pieces that mattered were gone. Her wedding ring. The bracelet. The pearl earrings. The sapphire ring. I stood there holding the box, and for a few seconds my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. Jason came to the doorway and said, Emily, please don't make this into something ugly. I turned around and asked, where are they? He rubbed his face. I sold a few pieces. A few pieces. I said, you sold my mother's jewelry? He said, I was trying to do something good. I asked which pieces, even though I already knew. He said he wasn't sure of every detail. The man at the counter told him which ones were worth something. He said that like it was normal. Like my mother's ring was just inventory. Like some stranger in a shop had more authority over her things than I did. I remember saying, you let a random man choose what parts of my mom were valuable enough to sell? Jason flinched. Then he got defensive. He said I had been sad for too long. He said I needed something to look forward to. He said my mom would hate seeing me like this. He said the jewelry was just sitting in a drawer. He said memories were more important than objects. He said we could make new memories in San Diego. That was when I started shaking. Because he kept using my mother like she was on his side. He kept speaking for a woman who had trusted me with those pieces because she knew exactly how much they meant. I said, my mom asked me to keep them safe. He said, and you did. For a while. I don't know if he meant it to sound that cruel, but it did. I asked him where he sold them. He hesitated. That hesitation told me he already knew I would try to get them back. He had thought that far ahead. He had not just made one stupid, impulsive decision. He had planned enough to hide the place from me if he could. I said, tell me where they are, or I call your mother right now and tell her what you did. He gave me the name of a jewelry buyer shop near downtown Omaha. Then he had the nerve to say, they probably still have them. Probably. That word nearly broke something in me. I called the shop immediately, but it was already closed. I barely slept that night. Jason tried to talk to me through the bedroom door because I locked him out. He said he was sorry. Then he said I was overreacting. Then he said he loved me. Then he said I was punishing him. It went in circles until I stopped answering. The next morning, I drove downtown before the shop opened. I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel, staring at the locked door, feeling like I was about to beg for my own mother back from a stranger. When the door finally opened, I went inside. A man behind the counter, Ronald, looked up like I was just another customer. I said my husband had sold jewelry there the day before, and I needed to know if any of it was still available. He asked for a description. I described each piece as clearly as I could. My mom's wedding ring had a tiny scratch near the inside edge because my dad once dropped it behind their dresser and scratched it getting it out. The bracelet had a small heart charm. The pearl earrings came in a blue velvet case. The sapphire ring was small, oval, with a thin band. Ronald went to the back. I stood there trying not to cry in front of glass cases full of other people's old rings and watches. I kept thinking about how many stories were trapped in that room. How many desperate people had traded memories for quick cash. How many had no choice. And then there was Jason, who had a choice and still chose this. Ronald came back with 2 small plastic bags. The wedding ring and the sapphire ring. He said the bracelet and earrings were already gone. Sold or sent out. He wasn't clear, and honestly, I don't think he cared. I asked how much to get the ring and sapphire back. The price was more than Jason got for them. Of course it was. That's how those places work. I paid it from my emergency savings because what else was I supposed to do? Leave my mom's wedding ring behind because my husband had already stolen from me once? When Ronald placed the bags in my hand, I felt relief and humiliation at the same time. Relief because I had saved something. Humiliation because I was standing in a shop buying back my own inheritance like it was a mistake I had made. On the drive home, I kept the bags in my coat pocket and touched them at every red light to make sure they were still there. Jason was waiting in the kitchen when I got back. He looked awful. I don't mean that in a satisfying way. He looked pale and scared, like maybe the consequences had finally reached him. He stood up and said, "Did you get them?" I said, "I got 2. His face fell. "Only 2. I stared at him. "You don't get to sound disappointed." He said he had cancelled the trip. He said we might not get all the money back, but he was trying. He said he would pay me back for the rings. He said he had panicked when he realized how bad it looked. How bad it looked? I asked. He said, "You know what I mean." I said, "No, I don't. Because you keep talking like the problem is my reaction." He stepped toward me and tried to hug me. I moved away. That hurt him. I saw it. And a tiny part of me hated that it hurt him, which made me even angrier because I was still protecting his feelings while he had destroyed mine. He said, "I made a mistake." I said, "A mistake is forgetting milk. A mistake is missing an exit. You opened my drawer, unwrapped my mother's scarf, took her jewelry, drove downtown, sold it, used the money for a vacation, came home, and smiled while handing me the tickets. That is not one mistake. That is a whole list of choices." He started crying then. Jason was not a man who cried easily. I had seen him cry at my mom's funeral. I had seen him cry once when his dog died years ago. So when he cried in the kitchen, part of me wanted to soften. Then he said, "I just wanted my wife back." And every bit of softness disappeared. Because there it was. The truth. This was not about helping me heal. This was about making me easier for him. He wanted the version of me from before my mom died, and instead of sitting with the version of me that existed now, he tried to force a reset button using the things she left behind. I packed a bag that afternoon. Not everything. Just clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the jewelry box, the 2 pieces I got back, and the scarf. Jason followed me from room to room saying my name. "Emily, please. Emily, slow down. Emily, can we talk?" I said, "We did talk. You just didn't like what I heard." I drove to Melissa's apartment across town. She opened the door and didn't even ask questions at first. She just looked at my face and stepped aside. When I finally told her, she sat on the floor with me and said, "I need you to hear me. This is not normal." I said, "I know. But I don't think I did know. Not fully. I knew it was awful, but I was still trying to place it inside the category of marriage problems. Like maybe this was one of those horrible things couples worked through. Like maybe I would be the villain if I left without giving him a chance." That feeling got worse when his family started calling. His mother, Shirley, called first. She was crying before I even said hello. She told me Jason was devastated. She said he hadn't eaten. She said he was ashamed. She said he loved me and had only wanted to help. She kept saying, "He made a stupid choice, but he is still your husband." I asked her if she knew he had sold my dead mother's wedding ring. There was a pause. Then she said, "I know, honey, but you got that one back, didn't you?" I hung up. His sister, Angela, texted me a long message about grief making people cruel. She said Jason had been carrying me emotionally for a year, and maybe I should think about what that had done to him. She said I was treating him like a criminal when he had only been desperate to make me happy. His brother, Eric, was more direct. He told me I was lucky to have a husband who cared enough to plan something. He said a lot of men would have just ignored me. Then his cousin, Cynthia, sent the message that made me block half the family. She wrote, "It's jewelry. You can buy more. Don't throw away a marriage over old metal." Old metal. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I looked at my mom's wedding ring sitting on Melissa's coffee table in that plastic bag, and I felt something in me go very still. Because that was exactly what Jason had counted on. That people would shrink it down until it sounded petty. Jewelry. Metal. A trip. A mistake. Nobody wanted to say what it really was. He stole from me. Not from our joint account. Not from a junk drawer. From my dead mother's jewelry box. From a promise I made beside her bed. I called my Aunt Kathleen that night. She lived in another state, and we were not extremely close, but she was the only person left on my mom's side who knew what that jewelry meant. I barely got the story out before I started crying. She stayed quiet until I finished. Then she said, "Emily, listen to me carefully. A man who can look at your grief and see something he can use will do it again." I didn't answer. She said, "I'm not telling you to divorce him. That's your choice. But do not let anyone convince you this is small. It is not small." That sentence stayed with me. For the first week at Melissa's, I barely moved. I went to work, came back, showered, ate whatever she put in front of me, and slept badly on her couch. Jason sent messages every day. At first, they were panicked. "Please come home. I'm so sorry. I canceled everything. I'll get the bracelet back. I'll fix this." Then they got defensive. "I can't believe you're letting everyone get involved. You know I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm not a monster." Then they got sentimental. "I miss you. The house feels dead without you. Your mom would not want us broken like this." That one made me so angry I threw my phone onto the couch like it had burned me. He kept using her. Even after everything, he still tried to bring my mother into it, like her memory was a tool he could pick up whenever he needed leverage. After 2 weeks, I agreed to meet him in a coffee shop. Public place. Middle of the day. Melissa knew where I was. I hated that I even had to think like that, because Jason had never been violent. But trust does not break in neat little sections. Once someone violates one boundary that badly, you start questioning all of them. He looked smaller when he walked in. Tired. Unshaven. He sat across from me and kept twisting his wedding ring. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I don't know how to fix what I did." I said, "You can start by saying what you did without softening it." He looked confused. I said, "Don't say you sold some stuff. Don't say you made a mistake. Say what you did." He swallowed. "I took your mom's jewelry and sold it." I said, "Behind my back." He nodded. "Behind your back. And used the money for a vacation." He closed his eyes. "Yes." And then tried to make me feel guilty for being upset. He opened his eyes. I was scared. "That's not what I asked." He nodded again. "Yes." For one small second, I saw the man I married. The one who could admit when he was wrong. The one who used to reach for my hand during hard conversations. And that hurt more than if he had come in arrogant. He said he had started therapy. He said he had picked up extra work. He said he would pay me back for buying back the ring and sapphire. He had called the jewelry buyer shop several times about the bracelet and earrings, but they were gone. He said he would keep trying. Then he said, "I just hate that one bad decision could end our marriage." And there it was again. One bad decision. I sat back and felt the door inside me close. I told him, "You still don't understand. You want forgiveness for a moment. I'm trying to survive the fact that there were so many moments where you could have stopped." He started to argue, then didn't. I said, "You could have stopped when you opened my drawer. You could have stopped when you touched the scarf. You could have stopped when you opened the box. You could have stopped when you drove downtown. You could have stopped when the man gave you a price. You could have stopped before booking the trip. You could have stopped before handing me those tickets like I was supposed to clap." His eyes filled again. I said, "So don't call it one decision. That makes it easier for you, not truer for me." He didn't have an answer. I left before my coffee got cold. The next few weeks were strange. I was grieving my mom all over again, but now I was also grieving my marriage while the person I was grieving was still alive and texting me. That is such a weird pain. Missing someone who hurt you. Wanting comfort from the same person who made you feel unsafe. Remembering all the good things and hating yourself for remembering them. I missed Jason in stupid little ways. I missed the sound of him looking for his keys every morning even though they were always by the door. I missed how he sang badly when he fixed things around the house. I missed how he used to put my side of the blanket in the dryer for 2 minutes when I was cold. Then I would remember him unwrapping my mother's scarf and my stomach would turn. People online love to say, I would leave immediately, like love shuts off cleanly when someone crosses a line. It doesn't. At least it didn't for me. I loved him. I hated what he did. I missed him. I didn't trust him. All of those things were true at the same time. The real breaking point came when I went back to the house to get more clothes. Jason was supposed to be at work. I had told him when I was coming. I wanted to be in and out without a scene. But when I walked into the bedroom, the dresser drawer was open. My whole body froze. The jewelry box was not in there because I had taken it, but the drawer was open, and my mom's scarf was folded differently than I left it. Jason came into the room behind me and said, "I was just looking." I turned around slowly. "Looking for what?" He said, "I don't know." "I missed you." I said, "So you went into the drawer again?" He said, "Emily, nothing is even in there." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I couldn't believe he still did not get it. I said, "That drawer is not yours anymore." He looked offended. "It's our bedroom." "No," I said. "It was our bedroom. And you made sure I can't even have a drawer inside it." That was the moment I knew I could not move back in. Maybe not ever. The next morning, I made an appointment with a separation attorney named Rebecca. Sitting in that office felt unreal. I kept thinking, this is what other people do. People whose marriages are really broken. People who have dramatic stories. Not me. Not us. Rebecca was calm. She asked questions. She did not gasp or make faces. She wrote things down and explained what separation would mean, what documents I needed, what money I should protect, and what steps were reasonable. When I told her about the jewelry, she paused for half a second longer than usual. Then she said, "Do you have the remaining pieces secured somewhere he cannot access?" I said they were at Melissa's. She said, "Move them to a safe deposit box." So I did. Because I work around banking, that part felt simple and horrible at the same time. I opened a box at a local bank, placed my mom's wedding ring, the sapphire ring, the empty jewelry box, and the scarf inside. I stood there in that little private room under fluorescent lights, looking at the pieces I had left. I should not have needed a bank vault to protect my mother from my husband. That thought almost made me sit down on the floor. Instead, I closed the box. After I filed for separation, Jason changed. Not completely. Not in some magical movie way. But enough that I noticed. He stopped sending defensive texts. He paid back the money I spent recovering the 2 pieces. He sent proof that he had taken extra shifts. He wrote a letter instead of demanding another meeting. It was 6 pages, handwritten. I read it at Melissa's kitchen table while she pretended not to watch me from the couch. Some parts broke my heart. He wrote about the day my mom died and how helpless he felt. He wrote that he didn't know how to live in a house where every room felt sad. He wrote that he started to resent the jewelry because it felt like I could touch my grief through it, but he couldn't touch me. He wrote that he convinced himself the trip would turn pain into something beautiful. Then he wrote, "I know now that I stole the choice from you." That line made me stop. Because finally, there it was. Not the jewelry. Not the money. Not the trip. The choice. He stole my choice. My choice to say no. My choice to decide what happened to my mother's things. My choice to grieve without being managed. My choice to keep a promise. For the first time, I felt like maybe he understood. Then the next paragraph said, "I hope one day this can be the story of how we almost lost each other, but didn't." And I got angry all over again. Because even in his apology, he was trying to write the ending. I didn't respond for 3 days. During that time, Shirley called again. I almost didn't answer, but I did. I think part of me wanted to know whether anyone in his family had actually sat with the truth. She sounded different this time. Less dramatic. She said, "Jason told me everything. More than before." I waited. She said, "I said some things to you I shouldn't have." I still didn't speak. She took a breath. If someone had sold something from my mother, I would have been destroyed. That was the first honest thing anyone in his family had said to me. I said, "Thank you." She said, "I'm not asking you to come back." I just wanted to say that. After we hung up, I cried. Not because it fixed anything. It didn't. But because being believed after everyone shrinks your pain down to nothing feels like oxygen. Angela texted a shorter apology a week later. Eric never did. Cynthia stayed blocked. A month after filing for separation, Jason found the bracelet. Not physically. He found out where it had gone. It had been sold to another buyer and then resold online. He sent me the listing. It was my mom's bracelet. I knew it from the tiny heart charm and the way the clasp sat slightly crooked. The price was ridiculous. Jason offered to buy it back. I let him. Part of me wanted to refuse because accepting anything from him felt complicated. But I wanted the bracelet more than I wanted pride. So he bought it. When it arrived, he did not bring it to me himself. He had it sent to Rebecca's office, and I picked it up there. That was probably the smartest thing he had done since this started. The pearl earrings were never found. I have accepted that they're gone. Some days I'm okay with it. Some days I picture a stranger wearing them and feel sick. Then I remind myself my mom is not trapped in the earrings. She is not trapped in the ring or the bracelet or the box. But love attaches itself to things when a person is gone, and anyone who is grieved understands that logic does not always matter. The quietest victory came on a Tuesday. I was back in my own rented apartment by then. Small place, not fancy. The water pressure was terrible, and the kitchen cabinets stuck if you pulled them too fast. But it was mine. No one had keys except me and Melissa. I took my mom's sapphire ring out of the safe deposit box and wore it to the grocery store. That was it. No big moment. No music. No dramatic sign from the universe. I wore it while buying eggs, paper towels, and frozen pizza. Nobody noticed. Nobody knew what it meant. But I knew. For the first time since Jason sold it, the ring did not feel ruined. It felt rescued. I stood in the frozen food aisle with my hand on the cart, looking at that little blue stone, and I felt my mom with me. Not in a spooky way. Just in the way memory can suddenly stand beside you and stop hurting for 1 second. I realized I had been waiting for someone else to give the jewelry its meaning back. Jason, with the right apology. His family, with the right understanding. Maybe even my mom, somehow, with permission from wherever she was. But the meaning was still mine. He had taken the objects. He had not taken the promise. That night, Jason texted me and asked if we could talk about what comes next. I looked at the message for a long time. The truth is, I still don't know if I'm going to divorce him. Some days, I think the marriage ended the second he opened that drawer. Other days, I think about therapy, time, accountability, and whether people can come back from the worst thing they have ever done. I know that answer would be easier if you were all bad. He isn't. That is the part that makes this hard. Jason can be gentle. He can be funny. He can fix anything with an engine. He can remember tiny details that make you feel loved. He also sold my dead mother's jewelry and tried to turn my pain into a vacation package. Both are true. Right now, we are separated. I have my own apartment. The recovered pieces are in a safe deposit box unless I choose to wear them. Jason is still in therapy. He has paid back the money. He found the bracelet. He stopped asking me to come home and started asking what I need. That matters, but it does not erase what happened. I told him I am not ready to decide. He said, "I understand." Maybe he does now. Maybe he doesn't. Time will tell. What I know is this. I am not the same woman who opened that empty jewelry box. I do not apologize for protecting what is left of me. I do not shrink my grief so other people can feel comfortable. I do not let anyone call a betrayal old metal just because they don't want to look at the wound underneath it. My mother once told me that wearing her jewelry might make it feel like she was still with me. She was right. But not because of the gold or the stones. Because every time I wear that ring now, I remember the promise I made to her. I remember that keeping something safe can also mean keeping myself safe. I remember that love without respect can still destroy you. And I remember that forgiveness, if it ever comes, does not have to mean handing someone back the key to the drawer they already emptied once. So I'm asking honestly, because I still go back and forth, is this the kind of betrayal a marriage can survive? Or am I right to believe some things cannot be bought back once they're sold?